My name is Lorraine Whitlow, and I am 82 years old. I have lived long enough to see winters that turned whole towns quiet and summers that made the fields behind my old farmhouse glow like gold. But nothing in my many years prepared me for the night I learned the truth about my own daughter. The night I found out that the whispers crawling through our small town were not just cruel gossip. The night I discovered that the monster everyone feared was the child I raised. Before we begin, I want to say this. If you enjoy emotional stories that touch the heart and keep you guessing until the last moment, go on and tap the like button, hit subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you never miss a story I bring to you. And tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I would love to know who is sitting with me as I tell this. Now let me take you straight into the moment when everything in my life cracked open. It was late. The kind of hush falls over a town when even the dogs are too tired to bark. I was sitting in my old leather chair in my living room, the one that smells like cedar and thyme. The lamp beside me was the only light on, and it flickered a little each time the wind pushed against the house. I had just finished rereading a letter from the sheriff, a letter that said the same thing he had been telling folks for weeks. There was a person in town hurting people, terrorizing them. Someone everyone should stay away from, someone dangerous. I should have been thinking about locking my doors, but my hands were shaking as I held that letter, because the sheriff had written one more line at the bottom, a line he had not said out loud to anyone else yet. Lorraine, the description matches your daughter. You should be careful. I did not believe it. I refused to. My daughter, Nella, had always been difficult, always quick to anger, always pushing the world back like it owed her something. But she was still mine. I held her when she cried as a child. I stayed awake nights when she would not come home. I forgave her again and again. But then, as I sat there, I heard footsteps outside my living room window, slow at first, then faster like something running. The lamp flickered again. I stood up, heart pounding. My cane shook in my hand. I went to the window, pulled the curtain back just a little, and looked out into the dark yard. That was when I saw her. Nella stood under the old pecan tree. Her hair was wet, hanging down her shoulders. Her clothes were dark and torn, and her eyes. They did not look like the eyes of the girl I raised. They looked hollow, like she had walked through something evil and brought part of it back with her. She lifted her head slowly, like she already knew I was watching. And then she smiled. The kind of smile that does not belong on a human face. The kind that makes your bones cold. I wanted to scream, but the sound froze somewhere inside me. Then she whispered something. Even from across the yard I could hear it. Soft, sharp, like a threat dressed as a secret. "Mama, let me in." My blood turned to ice, because behind her voice I heard something else. A second whisper, something that was not human at all, something that seemed to crawl through her words. I stepped back. My heart beat so hard it shook my ribs. I had spent all my life loving that girl, but in that moment, for the first time ever, I was afraid of my own daughter. And then the front door handle began to turn. When the door handle began to turn, my whole body locked in place. At 82, fear feels different. It is heavier. It drags your breath down into your stomach and makes your bones feel older than they already are. I stood there in the dim light of my living room, staring at that door as if staring hard enough might somehow keep it closed. The metal knob clicked again, slow, testing me, almost patient. I remembered how Nella used to twist doorknobs when she was little, tapping them with her fingers before going inside a room. Back then, it was innocent. Back then, it was just a habit a mother might smile at. But that night, the sound felt like a warning, like something inside her was imitating the daughter I once knew. My cane trembled in my hand. I wanted to run, but my knees would not let me. I thought about the sheriff's letter sitting on the table behind me. I thought about the neighbors who had said they saw a shadowy figure near their barns and porch steps. I thought about the woman from the bakery who had come by the house last week with tears in her eyes, saying she felt watched every time she walked home at night. They all had the same look of fear, the same trembling voice. And now, that fear was standing on my porch. The door pushed open 2 inches, just enough for cold air to slip inside, just enough for me to hear Nella breathing on the other side. "Mama." Her voice cracked in a way that scraped something deep inside me. I could not tell if she was crying or laughing. It sounded like both. Or like something was pushing through her words, twisting them into a shape that did not belong. I stepped back until my legs touched the edge of the sofa. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped my cane. Then something strange happened, something small, something almost invisible, but I saw it. Her shadow on the door. It did not match her body. It stretched too long, too thin, like it was reaching for me even though she had not moved. "Mama, open the door, please." I squeezed my eyes shut. My mind raced back to a memory I had spent years trying to forget. A night when Nella was 13 and came home late, her dress ripped, her hands covered in scratches. She had stared at me with those same hollow eyes, though back then I tried to pretend I imagined it. And she said something I never understood. "They followed me home, Mama." They? I never asked who they were. I never asked why she trembled as if she had seen something no child should ever see. I was too afraid of the truth. Now, all these years later, the truth was standing at my door. Lorraine. That was not her voice. It was deeper and older, and it sounded like it came from under the floorboards, through the walls, all around me at once. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, not from fear, from heartbreak, because I knew in that moment that whatever was out there wearing my daughter's face was not fully her. I took one step forward, just one. My hand reached toward the door. Maybe it was foolish. Maybe it was instinct. When you are a mother, you do not stop loving your child, even when the world tells you they have become something you should fear. But before my fingers touched the wood, the door suddenly slammed shut. Hard. So hard the lamp rattled on the table and a picture frame fell from the wall. Silence. Then footsteps, fast, running away from the house, off the porch, across the yard, like something was being chased or pushing her onward. I stood there, breathing unevenly, waiting for the sound to stop, but it did not. It stretched on and on as if she was circling the property, watching me from the dark, maybe deciding what to do next. I closed the door, locked it, and backed away until my shoulders hit the wall. The quiet of the room wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, but I did not feel safe, not even a little. Because there was something else, something I had not noticed at first. On the floor near the door was a mark, a small smear of dark mud from her shoe, but in the center of it, carved into the floorboards, was a shape, thin lines forming a circle with 3 small slashes through it. I felt my breath catch. I had seen that symbol before. Once, carved into the side of our old barn when Nella was 15. Once, scratched onto her bedroom window when she was 18. And once, years later, on a letter I found in her drawer. A letter she had written but never mailed. A letter I only read after she moved away. "Do not let them in, Mama, even if they sound like me." I sank onto the sofa, my heart beat loud in my ears. The world outside was quiet again, too quiet. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. It said only one thing: "She is not done." And then another message followed: "Check your backyard." My whole body went cold. Slowly, like old wood creaking under pressure, I pushed myself up and walked toward the window. I pulled back the curtain with a shaking hand. And what I saw in the backyard made my knees give way. I will tell you what it was in the next chapter. To continue this story with me, make sure you hit like, leave a comment telling me where you are watching from, and subscribe so you won't miss the next sweet story like this. The truth is only beginning to show itself. I pulled the curtain back with a hand that felt too old and too weak for what I was about to see. For a moment, my breath stopped, like even my body knew I was not ready. The moon hung low in the sky, bright enough to spread a pale glow across the yard. Every blade of grass looked silver. Every shadow looked wrong. And there, right in the center of my backyard, was something I had not seen in more than 60 years. A swing. Not an ordinary swing made for children. This one was made from thick rope and an old wooden plank. The same design my husband, Samuel, built for Nella when she was 7. The same swing he placed under the pecan tree so she could sit there and hum to herself on summer afternoons. The same swing that had been torn down years ago when a storm ripped the tree apart. But there it was now, hanging, swaying gently even though the wind was still. For a long moment, I simply stared. My old heart thumped hard against my ribs. I blinked twice, hoping my eyes were tricking me, but the swing did not disappear. It moved again, soft, back and forth, as if someone had been sitting on it only seconds before I looked out. Then I noticed something else. Carved into the wooden seat was the same symbol I had seen scratched into my floor. A circle with 3 slashes through it. I felt a deep pressure building in my chest. Not pain, memory. I remembered the first time I saw that symbol. Nella was 15, her hair messy, her eyes wide. She came into the kitchen shaking, saying someone had carved it onto the barn door. I had told her it was probably some neighborhood kids playing a prank. I told her she was safe. I told her not to worry. But she had stared at me with a look I did not understand. A look that said she knew better, even then. Mama, they are coming. Back then I thought she meant bullies, or troublemakers, or some wild teenage imagination she would grow out of. I told myself she was dramatic, sensitive, lonely. Now, as I stared at that swing from my window, every part of me wished I had listened to her. I stepped back from the curtain and grabbed my cane, though I was not sure why. It felt like the only thing I had left to hold on to. My legs trembled. My hands felt cold. The night pressed against the windows like it wanted to come inside. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message, same unknown number. Go outside. My fingers shook so violently that I almost dropped the phone. I stood there in the middle of the living room, frozen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, crawl back into my chair, and pretend none of this was happening. Pretend my daughter was still the little girl who used to pick wildflowers and leave them on my pillow. Pretend the world was still kind. But something deep inside me answered. Something stubborn. Something that comes with age and motherhood. A strength that does not fade, no matter how heavy the years become. I had spent most of my life protecting Nella. If she was out there, if she was in trouble, if she was fighting something darker than I ever understood, then I had to face it, even if it broke me. I slipped my coat on and shuffled toward the back door. The house groaned quietly, as if warning me not to go, but I kept moving. I unlocked the door. The knob felt icy beneath my palm. As soon as I opened it, a wave of cold air rushed in. The backyard stretched out in front of me like a memory twisted into something unfamiliar. The swing swayed harder now, though the air was completely still. I took a slow step outside. The grass crunched under my shoes. The moonlight made everything look washed out, like I was walking into a dream that did not want to let me wake up. When I reached the swing, I saw something that made my throat close. There was a photograph pinned to the wooden seat with a rusty nail. My knees bent and I lowered myself slowly until I could see it clearly. The picture was faded but unmistakable. It was me holding Nella when she was 5. She had her arms wrapped around my neck. Her smile was wide, pure, innocent. But someone had drawn a line across my face, a dark, angry line, and beside the picture, carved into the wood, was a message. "You should have protected her." I gasped softly. Tears stung my eyes. I touched the photo with one trembling finger. My chest tightened as memories flooded back. Nella at 5, hiding behind my skirt. Nella at 10, waking up screaming from nightmares she never explained. Nella at 13, refusing to sleep in her room. Nella at 18, staring at her reflection and saying she did not feel alone even when she was. I whispered into the night, "Nella, what happened to you?" The swing suddenly jerked, snapping forward as if shoved by invisible hands. I stumbled back, nearly falling. The ropes twisted, creaked, and then stopped completely. Silence. Then I heard it. A soft sound coming from the edge of the woods behind my house. A voice, a whisper, familiar, fragile. "Mama." My heart jumped. I turned toward the tree line. There between 2 large oaks stood a silhouette, shoulders hunched, hair hanging, bare feet sinking into the dirt. I knew that shape. I knew it better than I knew myself. Nella. She lifted her head slowly and I saw her face in the moonlight. Pale, tired, bruised, but her eyes were normal again. No darkness, no hollow emptiness, just fear. She took one step toward me. "Mama, you have to run." I opened my mouth, confused, terrified. "Run from what?" Nella shook her head, her lips trembling, her breath visible in the cold air. "They are coming." Before I could ask who she meant, something moved behind her in the shadows. Something tall, something silent, something that did not move like any person I had ever seen. I froze. Nella looked over her shoulder, her face turning white with terror. "Mama, please go inside, now." She took a step back toward the darkness, as if she wanted to draw whatever was behind her away from me. Then the shadows swallowed her. I screamed her name, but the sound died in my throat. The trees rustled, the moon dimmed. The backyard felt suddenly smaller, as if the night was closing in around me. I stumbled backward toward the house, heart pounding so hard it made my vision blur. Just before I reached the door, I glanced back at the woods. And I saw eyes staring at me from the darkness. Not human, not anything I could name. They blinked once, twice, then vanished. I slammed the door shut and locked it. My breath came in sharp gasps. My whole body trembled. Then another text came through, this time with a picture. It was a photo of Nella, standing in my backyard 10 minutes earlier. But she was not alone. Someone else was standing behind her. Someone I recognized. Someone I had not seen in 20 years. And when I saw who it was, the truth hit me so hard I had to grab the wall to stay standing. When I saw the picture on my phone, my breath caught in my throat. The image was grainy, taken from somewhere near the tree line, but the faces were clear enough to freeze the blood in my veins. Nella stood in the center of the photo, her shoulders hunched, her eyes darting off toward the house. She looked like a woman caught between running and collapsing, but it was the person behind her who turned my bones cold. It was Samuel. My husband. My Samuel, who had been dead for 20 years. He looked exactly as he did the week before the accident that took him from me. Same flannel shirt, same old boots, same tired but gentle expression, except this time something was off, wrong. His eyes were too dark, too still, too empty, as if whatever stood behind my daughter was only wearing his shape. I felt the room tilt. The phone slipped from my hand and hit the rug with a soft thud. My breathing grew uneven, like my lungs did not know how to work anymore. I whispered his name. Samuel. Hearing it aloud made the air feel even heavier. I bent down slowly, picked up the phone, and stared at the picture again. My hands shook so terribly that the screen blurred. 20 years had passed since I buried that man, since I stood at his grave with Nella holding on to my coat so tight her fingers turned white. 20 years since I had cried myself to sleep wondering how I would raise our daughter alone. Now here he was, standing in my backyard. With her. The house felt smaller and darker than before. The shadows along the walls seemed to stretch closer. I sat down in my old chair, the leather creaking beneath me, and tried to calm the storm inside my chest. Why would someone send me this? Why show me something impossible? And who was behind that phone number? Before I could think further, my landline phone rang. The old beige telephone on the wall, the one that hardly ever rang anymore. The sound sliced through the silence, sharp and startling. I stared at it as it rang again and again. I did not want to answer. Something deep in my bones told me not to. But another part of me, the part that had spent my entire life caring for my family, pushed me forward. I picked up the receiver, my hand shaking against the plastic. Hello. There was no answer at first, just a faint hum, a rustle, a slow breathing that did not sound human. I gripped the phone tighter. Who is this? Still nothing. Then, just as I was about to hang up, a voice whispered into my ear. You left her alone. The words sank into me like ice water. I gripped the receiver so hard my knuckles ached. Who are you? The voice shifted, became layered, as if more than one person spoke through the same mouth. A deep tone overlapped with a higher one, a distorted echo. You left her with us. My heart stumbled. This is a sick joke. Stop calling here. A soft chuckle came through the line, cold, hollow. She belongs to us now. My breath hitched. I slammed the receiver down with shaking hands. The house went silent again, too silent. The silence that follows a storm you know is not done. I pressed a hand against my chest, trying to slow my heartbeat. My mind raced backward, flipping through memories I had tried to forget. There was a night years ago when Nella was 17. She had come home late again, trembling, her cheeks streaked with tears. She had begged me not to leave her alone that night. I asked what frightened her. She only said one sentence. They promised to come back for me. I never understood who she meant. She never explained further. The next morning she acted fine, said she did not remember saying anything at all. I chalked it up to teenage fear, stress, imagination. Now I knew better. I forced myself to stand. My joints protested, but I steadied myself with my cane and shuffled to the window. The backyard looked the same as before, empty, quiet, the swing still swaying slightly. But Samuel was not there now, neither was Nella. The picture on my phone burned in my thoughts. If someone wanted to torment me, this was a cruel way to do it. But if the image was real, even in some twisted way, then something was happening that I was only beginning to understand. I needed answers. I turned from the window and made my way to the hallway closet. Inside, under old blankets and a box of winter coats, was a small wooden box I had not touched in years. The box Samuel built before he died. The box he told me never to open unless I had no other choice. That warning had echoed in my mind many times over the years, but I had always listened, until now. My fingers traced the lid. The wood felt cold. My breath shook. Slowly, I lifted the top. Inside was a folded piece of paper, old, yellowed, Samuel's handwriting on the front. If something happens to me, do not trust what follows. My throat tightened. My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter. The writing was rushed, uneven, as if he wrote it in fear. Lorraine, they are not human. They want Nella. They have wanted her since she was a child. Do not let her see them. Do not let them speak through her. If I am gone, protect her with everything you have. And if she changes, do not let her leave this house. Do not let her go into the woods. And whatever you do, do not answer if they call your name. I froze. The phone call. The backyard. The picture. The symbol carved into the swing. Every memory of Nella's fear. Every strange moment I ignored. Every warning I brushed aside. My knees grew weak. I clutched the edge of the closet door. Then I saw something else inside the box. A photograph. It was old, black and white. Samuel stood near the edge of the woods behind our house, holding Nella's hand. She was maybe 5 years old, but what stopped my heart was not them. It was the figure behind them. A tall shadow, almost human, but distorted, as if the camera captured something that should not have been there. Under the photo, Samuel had written one sentence. They follow the bloodline. I swallowed hard, my mind spun. If they wanted Nella because of her bloodline, then they wanted more. Then they wanted me too. As I stared at the picture, my phone buzzed again. I hesitated before picking it up. Another message, same number. You should have protected her. Then another. Look outside again. My stomach dropped. I turned slowly, every part of me trembling, and shuffled back to the window. I pulled the curtain back with a shaking hand. This time, I did not see the swing. I saw footprints. Dozens of them. Leading from the woods straight toward my back door. And they were fresh. But the worst part was the final set of footprints. Smaller, softer, the kind a girl would leave. Nella. Her prints stopped only inches away from the porch. But there were no prints showing she left. She was close. She was watching. And she was not alone. My breath caught as a shadow passed across the yard. Something was moving again. Slow. Deliberate. Coming closer. The moment I saw movement at the edge of the woods, my breath tightened so sharply that I had to steady myself against the wall. The night air outside the window trembled with a strange tension, the kind that makes the skin prickle before the mind understands why. The trees swayed even though the wind was still. The branches whispered against each other, soft at first, then louder, as if warning each other that something was coming through them. The moonlight stretched across the yard, pale and thin, and for a moment nothing moved. Then a figure stepped forward. At first I thought it was a deer or a large dog. The shape was low, hunched, crawling on all fours with jerky movements, like it was learning how to use its limbs. But then it rose, slowly, vertebra by vertebra, until it stood upright. The sight made my heart stutter. Even from inside the house, I could see that its outline was wrong. Too long, too narrow. Its arms hung lower than they should, almost brushing the ground. Its head tilted to one side as if it were studying the house, listening to the walls breathe. Every part of me froze. I could not see its face, only darkness, the kind of darkness that seemed to swallow the moonlight around it. I gripped my cane harder, my knuckles turned white. The figure took another step forward. The grass beneath its feet bent as if weighed down by something much heavier than its frame suggested. It moved slowly, with the same patient rhythm of someone who knew exactly where they were going. Straight toward my back porch. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. I felt the memories swirl inside me like dust, shaken loose from old corners of the mind. Nella at 5, waking up screaming. Nella at 13, refusing to go into the woods. Nella at 17, saying they were coming back for her. Samuel warning me in his letter not to let them speak through her. Now here one was, walking straight toward my home. I stepped back from the window, but I could not bring myself to look away completely. My old legs trembled. My breath felt too shallow to pull in fully. It was as if the house itself was holding its breath with me. The figure stopped at the foot of the porch steps. For a long moment, it simply stood there, head tilted, body motionless. Then, slowly, it lifted its arm and touched the first step with long fingers. The wood groaned softly beneath the pressure. I pressed a hand against my chest. The pounding was so loud that I worried the thing outside might hear it. 1 step. 2. 3. Each footstep creaked louder than the last as the creature climbed the steps. When it reached the top, it paused again, standing directly in front of the back door. The same door Nella had tried to open only hours earlier. The same door Samuel had once built a lock for that he said was meant for more than keeping raccoons out. I watched as the figure leaned closer, its face now only inches from the glass. The window pane fogged slightly as it exhaled. Then it spoke. The voice that came through the glass was not loud, not booming, not monstrous. That would have been easier. Instead, it whispered in the same gentle tone Samuel used when he used to call my name from the porch at night. Lorraine. My knees almost buckled. The voice repeated, Lorraine, let me in. I shook my head, backing away. That was not Samuel. That was not anyone human. Whatever stood at my door was something that wanted me to believe it was safe. Something that knew my weak spots, the cracks in my heart that 20 years of grief had carved. The voice grew softer, sadder. Lorraine, I am cold. My eyes burned with tears. Old memories rose like ghosts. Samuel chopping wood on winter nights. Samuel warming his hands by the stove. Samuel wrapping a blanket around my shoulders in the living room. And now, this thing was wearing those memories like they were its own. I forced myself to speak, though my voice trembled. You are not him. The creature froze. The silence that followed felt heavier than any sound. Then its head turned sharply, too sharply, like its neck had no bones at all. The movement was unnatural, a reminder that the thing outside was only pretending to understand humanity. I stepped back farther. If it broke the door, there was nothing I could do. My age was an anchor dragging me down in a storm I could not fight. The creature suddenly pressed both palms against the glass. The pressure made the window creak. The frame rattled. I feared the glass would shatter in an instant. I braced myself, clutching my cane with both hands. But it did not break. Instead, the creature lowered its head until its forehead touched the glass. And then it spoke again, but not in Samuel's voice this time. This time, it spoke in Nella. Mama. My breath caught. Mama, please, help me. My heart twisted painfully. My daughter's voice. The voice I had comforted through childhood tantrums, heartbreaks, and nightmares. The voice I had not heard in years without anger or distance clouding it. I whispered back, Nella. The creature lifted its head. Its shadowed face pressed closer. The glass distorted its features, stretching them unnaturally, but the voice was unmistakable. I need you, Mama. The urge to open the door tugged at me, pulling on the deepest threads of motherhood. The instinct to protect her, even if she had become something terrifying, was almost overwhelming. But then I remembered the letter. Do not let them speak through her. My hands shook as I stepped back again. No. The creature stopped whispering. It stood still for a long moment, so still I wondered if it stopped breathing. Then it slowly lowered its arms. It stepped away from the door with unnatural calm, as if deciding something. The porch creaked under its weight. It turned its head toward the woods, and then it spoke one final time in a voice I did not recognize at all. Not Samuel's, not Nella's, not human. "You are next." The words were not shouted. They did not need to be. They carried a certainty that shook me deeper than fear. Then the creature stepped backward into the yard. One long stride. Another. It moved so quickly and silently that the grass did not rustle beneath it. Its body stretched unnaturally, shifting shape, dissolving piece by piece into the darkness between the trees. Within seconds, it was gone. Silence wrapped around the backyard again. The swing stilled. The air settled. The moon shone like nothing had happened. I stood alone in the dim light of the living room, trembling so violently I had to sit down before my legs gave way. My mind felt cracked open, flooded with questions I could not begin to answer. What did it want with Nella? What did it want with me? What did Samuel know before he died? Who was sending me the messages? And what did it mean that I was next? As I sat there trying to steady my breath, my phone buzzed again. This time it was not a text message. It was a video. From that same unknown number. I hesitated before tapping on it, but curiosity and terror pushed my finger forward. The screen was dark for the first few seconds. Then a faint image appeared. A figure sitting on the swing, swaying slowly. And when the camera zoomed in, I recognized the face. It was Nella, but something was terribly wrong with her eyes. The moment the video began to sharpen, a coldness moved through me that no blanket or heater could ever chase away. The image wavered for a second, like whoever held the camera had breathed too close to the lens. Then the picture stabilized, and I could see the backyard. My backyard. The pecan tree loomed like a skeleton in the moonlight, and beneath it, the old swing swayed with that slow, haunting rhythm. Nella sat on the swing, but not the way a person sits. Her arms hung too loosely at her sides. Her shoulders slumped forward as if her bones were too heavy. Her hair covered most of her face, long and tangled, hiding her expression from the camera. I brought the phone closer to my eyes. Her feet barely touched the ground. They looked pale, almost bluish, like someone who had been standing in snow for hours. I pressed a trembling hand to my mouth. Was she alive? Was she hurt? Was she controlled? Too many questions built in my chest, pushing at my heart until it felt ready to split. The camera moved closer, step by step. Whoever held it walked with slow, deliberate footsteps. The kind of steps someone makes when they want to savor every moment of fear they cause. Then the swing jerked. Not softly. Not in a breeze. It jerked as if something behind Nella had grabbed the ropes and pulled them. Her head lifted slightly, as if reacting to the sudden motion, but she still did not look up. Not yet. The camera came closer, close enough that I could hear her breathing through the speaker. It was uneven, quick, a sound that did not belong to someone sitting still. I tapped the screen, trying to make the image clearer, my hands shaking so badly the phone nearly slipped. "Please look up, baby. Let me see your face. Let me know you're still you." But she didn't. Not yet. The figure holding the camera moved so close that the lens nearly touched the ropes of the swing. The view shifted upward, slowly, deliberately, until it hovered right in front of her face. And then Nella lifted her head. I gasped. The sound escaped me before I could stop it. Her eyes were completely white. No pupils, no color, just endless pale white, like the eyes of someone who had stepped so far into darkness that the world had vanished inside her. The swing continued to sway, and with each forward motion, her face came closer to the camera. She blinked, but even the blink looked wrong, jerky, delayed, like something else was controlling her body by pulling strings too tight. Then her lips parted slightly. "Mama." The word came out in a whisper so soft that at first I thought it was only in my mind. But it was. The audio on the phone captured it too, a faint breath, a fragile cry, a plea. Then her eyes rolled upward, white disappearing behind her lids for half a second before snapping back into place. Her neck twitched, her shoulders jerked, like something was pulling at her muscles from the inside. I leaned forward in my chair, gripping my cane so tight my fingers ached. "Nella, baby, what did they do to you?" The video zoomed in closer, as if the person filming wanted me to see more, wanted me to see everything. Nella's lips trembled. Her chin quivered, but not the quiver of a normal sob. It was fast, frantic, too fast for a human face. The kind of trembling that didn't look like fear, it looked like possession. She opened her mouth wider. But this time, her voice changed. "Mama." The words split in two. The first half was hers, shaky, frightened. The second half was deeper, not her tone, not her sound, something older, something that made my stomach twist. The camera pulled back, and suddenly I saw something that nearly made me drop the phone. A hand. Standing behind her. Not resting on her shoulder, not holding the ropes of the swing. No. A hand rising from behind her, barely visible, long fingers curling through her hair as if it were pulling her head upright. The skin was gray, dry, too thin. The nails were dark, pointed, almost clawed. I gripped the arm of my chair, so hard it creaked. Nella's head lifted higher. Her mouth opened wider again, as if she were about to say something else. But instead of words, a low groaning sound left her, a sound that did not belong to any living person. Then the video jolted abruptly. The camera pointed at the trees, the ground, the sky like the person holding it had been shoved. Leaves rustled. Something heavy moved. A faint growl echoed. When the video steadied again, the swing was empty. Nella was gone. So was the creature behind her. The camera lifted and pointed toward the woods. The darkness between the trees seemed thicker, as if something had just slipped into it. Then the camera slowly turned toward the house. Toward me. Toward the back window. Toward the very glass I was standing behind right now. The video zoomed in. Closer. Closer. Until I could see my own faint reflection in the window. Until it looked like the camera was only inches away from the place where I was sitting at that moment. Then the video ended. No sound, no fading effect, just a hard cut to black. I stared at the blank screen, unable to breathe. My fingers twitched, barely holding the phone. For a long moment, I simply existed in that silence, my heart pounding like a drum inside my chest. Was the video live? Was it sent moments after being recorded? Was someone watching me from the dark even now? I stood slowly, my knees weak. I turned toward the back window. The backyard was empty. Still. Too still. Then my phone buzzed again. One new message. 4 words that made every drop of blood in my body turn cold. She is with him. My breath stopped. I typed with shaking fingers. With who? A moment passed, too long, long enough that I wondered if the message would ever come. Then it appeared. The man you failed. My throat tightened. Samuel. But before I could respond, another message came through. Look under your kitchen floor. My heart dropped into my stomach. What was under the floor? Why would Samuel be mentioned? Why would Nella be with him, dead or alive? I took one shaky step toward the kitchen, feeling the house grow heavier with each movement. Whatever they wanted me to find down there, it was something Samuel had kept hidden, something tied to the bloodline, something that might explain everything. But nothing could have prepared me for what I would uncover beneath those old wooden planks. It took me a long moment to gather the strength just to move. The house felt different now, as if the walls had begun listening, as if every shadow had a purpose, as if the air itself was waiting for me to make the next mistake. My kitchen had always been the warmest room in the house. The soft yellow paint, the chipped ceramic mugs hanging above the sink, the humming refrigerator Samuel bought before he died. It used to be a place of comfort. Morning coffee, Sunday breakfasts, quiet evenings talking while the sun set behind the woods. Now, as I stepped into the kitchen, all that warmth was gone. The room felt hollow, heavy, like someone had sucked the soul out of it and left nothing but the bones behind. My cane tapped softly against the floor as I moved closer to the center of the room. The old wooden boards creaked under my weight. They had creaked the same way for decades, but tonight the sound felt different. Too sharp, too loud, as if something beneath them was listening. Look under your kitchen floor. The message echoed in my mind, circling like a vulture waiting for something to die. I swallowed hard. My hands trembled as I reached the edge of the kitchen rug, a faded patchwork thing I had sewn years ago. I bent slowly, painfully, my bones protesting the movement. With a tight breath, I grasped the corners of the rug and tugged. Dust rose into the air. The smell of old wood, damp and untouched, drifted upward. Beneath the rug, the floorboards looked normal at first, scratched from years of kitchen chairs dragging, darkened with age. But as I stared closer, I saw something faint. A line, straight, deliberate, not part of the natural grain. A seam. My heart thudded painfully. Samuel had done this. I was sure of it. I ran my fingers along the seam. The wood felt slightly raised at the edges, as if someone had lifted it before. I took a shaky breath and placed both hands beneath the small gap. My arms strained. Age has a way of reminding you what you can and cannot do, but I pushed through the pain and lifted. The board shifted, groaned, then finally came loose, revealing a dark, hollow space underneath. A cold draft drifted out, brushing against my face like a whisper. I leaned over and widened the opening, moving aside 2 more boards until I could see clearly. At first, all I saw was darkness. Then my eyes adjusted. There was a box. Not the wooden box I had opened earlier, but a metal one. Thick, rusted, locked with a latch that looked ancient. Something about it made my skin crawl. It felt like the kind of thing meant to hide something terrible, not protect it. I hesitated. Every instinct told me not to touch it. Then I thought of Nella's white eyes. Samuel's impossible figure behind her. The creature whispering through the door. The voice on the phone blaming me. I couldn't turn back. I reached into the opening, grabbed the cold metal handle, and pulled the box out. It scraped against the wood, leaving deep marks. I placed it on the kitchen floor, my breath shaky and uneven. The latch was stiff, resisting my fingers. I tried once, twice. On the third try, it snapped open with a sharp click that echoed through the whole kitchen. Inside the box were 3 things. The first was a stack of letters, 30 or 40 of them, all addressed to me. None of them ever mailed, all of them in Samuel's handwriting. The second was a small leather pouch, tied tightly with an old string. Something inside it clinked when I touched it. The third was a journal, black leather, edges cracked with time, Samuel's name carved faintly into the cover. My breath hitched. I reached for the letters first. The top one had a date written on it. 3 days before his death. I unfolded it slowly. The paper was brittle, creasing in my hands. Lorraine, forgive me. I have kept this from you for too long. They have been watching Nella since the day she was born. They want her because she carries what her mother carries. The words blurred. I blinked, forcing my eyes to stay open. My voice trembled as I whispered into the empty room. What I carry. I read on. They are not spirits. They are not people. They are something older than either. I have found traces of them in the woods. Symbols carved into trees. Animal bones arranged in patterns. And I have seen them following her at dusk. My hands shook harder. The next line made me drop the letter. They told me they want her because of you. I covered my mouth, swallowing a cry. My heart thudded painfully as I reached for the second letter in the stack. My eyes scanned the words, desperate, terrified. Lorraine, you must understand. She was born different. She sees things we cannot. They knew she would. They chose her because she is the first in your line to carry the full mark. The full mark. I felt the room spin. I pressed my hand against the floor to steady myself. I grabbed the journal next. If the letters were fragments, maybe the journal would explain everything. When I opened it, a small, folded piece of paper fluttered out. It drifted to the floor. I picked it up. On the back was a crude drawing of the circle with 3 slashes, the same symbol carved into the swing, the floor, the woods. But on the front was a sketch of a woman. Me. My breath caught. I traced the pencil lines with a trembling finger. In the drawing, the symbol was carved across my chest. I felt my knees weaken as I sat heavily on the kitchen floor. The journal lay open in my lap, filled with Samuel's handwriting. Page after page described encounters, fears, nights he heard voices near the woods. He wrote of waking to find Nella standing in her room, staring out the window, whispering to something invisible. He wrote of following strange tracks near the creek, of finding symbols burned into trees, of hearing my name echoed in the darkness. But the last entry, his final words, were the ones that shattered me. If anything happens to me, it will not be an accident. It will be them. And if they show themselves to you, run. Do not believe anything wearing my face. Do not follow anything with Nella's voice. The bloodline is theirs to claim, but you can break it if you choose. The choice will cost you everything. But if you love her, you will do it. I stared at that last sentence for so long that the words blurred. Tears fell onto the page, darkening the ink. Cost me everything. A deep, cracking ache settled in my chest. I looked around my silent kitchen, feeling older than my 82 years, feeling every moment of the life I had lived, every mistake, every blind choice. I reached for the leather pouch inside the box. My fingers trembled as I untied the string. Inside was a small metal object. A locket. I opened it slowly. On one side was a drawing of the same symbol. On the other was a picture. A baby. Not Nella. Me. I stared at my own infant face, cold horror flooding my chest. The symbol was not hers first. It was mine. My phone buzzed suddenly, violently breaking the silence. Another message. This time, it was one sentence. You were the beginning. I dropped the locket. It clattered against the floor. And then, a second message came through. And she will be the end. Before I could breathe, before I could think, before I could run. I heard footsteps. Not outside. Inside. Slow. Deliberate. Coming down the hallway. Coming toward the kitchen. I forced myself to look up. and standing at the doorframe was someone I never expected to see again. The figure in the doorway did not move at first. It just stood there, shadowed by the dim hallway light, its outline still and unnatural. For a moment I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. At 82, your eyes can blur, your memory can drift, your senses can betray you. But the shape before me, it was too familiar to dismiss, too impossibly familiar. Slowly, the figure stepped forward, letting the hallway light fall across a face I had not seen in more than 20 years. Miriam. My sister. Except she had been dead for 15 years. My breath caught in my throat. The room collapsed inward, as if the walls shifted to trap me with her. She looked exactly as she had the last time I saw her. Same auburn hair brushing her shoulders, same narrow chin, same stern eyes that once judged me for every choice I ever made. The only thing different was her expression now. She was smiling. Not with warmth, not with kindness, but with something sharp, brittle, and wrong. "Lorraine," she whispered. Her voice sounded like gravel dragged across stone. I pressed my back against the cupboard, my breath trembling as I clutched my cane with both hands. My legs shook so violently I felt I might collapse. Miriam had died in her sleep. Peacefully, the doctor said, quietly in the middle of the night. I had attended her funeral. I had stood next to her coffin. I had watched them lower her into the ground. And yet here she was. Or something pretending to be her. "You kept the box," she said softly, like she was scolding me for not cleaning my kitchen counters. "You always did hold onto things you shouldn't." My heart thrashed against my ribs. The box lay open beside me, the letters spread across the floor. She stepped closer, slow, the same deliberate steps Samuel had taken in that awful dream. The sound of her feet hitting the kitchen floorboards made me want to curl inward. Every part of me screamed to run, to hide, to vanish. I tried to speak, but my voice cracked. "You're not her." She tilted her head slightly, just like she used to when we were girls fighting over who would inherit Mama's wedding ring. Except her eyes, they weren't my sister's eyes. Miriam's eyes had always been striking green. These were dark, depthless, as if someone had poured ink into her pupils. "Oh, but I am, Lorraine. I am every piece of her you remember." She raised her hand and pointed at her own chest. "And every piece you tried to forget." My stomach twisted. She began walking toward the kitchen table, running her fingers across the wood as if inspecting it for dust. "This house was always too quiet," she murmured. "No wonder they chose it." I swallowed. "They who?" She didn't answer. Instead, she bent down, picked up one of Samuel's letters, and read aloud. "They chose her because she was the first in your line to carry the full mark." She looked up at me slowly, her lips curving into an unnatural smile. "The full mark, dear sister, passed down like an heirloom, from mother to daughter, from you to her." My heart sank, cold, heavy. I clutched the locket on the floor and held it close to my chest. "Give that to me," she said, her smile vanishing. "No," I whispered. Her head snapped up sharply. Her voice dropped low, twisting as if two tones fought inside her throat. "Lorraine, give it to me." I shook my head. Tears blurred my vision. My fingers curled protectively around the locket. The picture of me as a baby was still inside it. The symbol etched beside it seemed to burn into my palm. Her movements changed instantly. She lunged forward, her body bending in a way that broke the memory of who she had once been. Arms too long, back too curved, shadows twisting around her like something beneath her skin was pushing to come out. I scrambled backward, using the cupboard to pull myself up. My legs screamed in pain, but I forced them to hold me. I grabbed the edge of the counter, breathing hard. She reached for me, fingers stretching unnaturally, desperate to snatch what lay in my hands. Then, a sound tore through the kitchen. A deep, low rumble. The lights flickered. The floor trembled under my feet. The air grew colder. Miriam's face twisted, eyes widening, mouth contorting as if something had grabbed her from behind and yanked her violently. She let out a sound that didn't belong in this world, a scraping, rattling cry that made my bones vibrate. Then she was thrown backward. Her body slammed against the hallway wall with a force that shook dust from the ceiling. She crumpled, twitching, her form rippling like water disturbed by a stone. Behind her, the shadows thickened. They stretched from the hallway into the kitchen, pulling forward like long fingers reaching across the floor. Out of the shadows, a voice emerged. Not human. Not earthly. Low, cold, ancient. She cannot help you anymore. I froze, my breath trapped in my chest. The shadows twisted again. But she can. Another shape began to form, tall, lean, flickering like smoke. My fingers tightened around my cane as I stumbled back. The shape leaned forward. And then, the front door burst open. Cold night air flooded the house. Nella stumbled inside. Her hair wild, her clothes torn, her breath coming fast and uneven. Her eyes were almost normal, but flickered with that same strange light I had seen too many times before. "Mama," she gasped, grabbing the wall to steady herself. "You need to come with me, right now." I stared at her, my chest aching. Nella looked past me into the kitchen, saw the shadows gathering, saw the twisted figure that once looked like my sister. Her face went pale. She whispered one word. "Run." The shadows surged forward. "Run." Nella's voice cracked like lightning through the kitchen, slicing through the heavy, choking air. Her eyes locked onto mine, wide with a desperation I had never seen in her. For one breath, for one impossible moment, I saw her the way she once was. The little girl who used to run barefoot in the yard. The teenager who used to cry into my arms after nightmares she never fully described. The daughter who, even through confusion and darkness, still looked toward me for strength. But then the shadows surged. A wave of blackness rolled across the kitchen floor like living smoke. The figure wearing Miriam's body twisted upright with a sickening jerk, her limbs bending in ways that made my stomach churn. She hissed, her face stretching into something inhuman, her mouth widening into a smile so sharp it no longer resembled anything my sister had ever been. Nella stepped between me and the shadows. Her voice trembled. "Leave her alone." The shadows paused, just for a heartbeat, as if recognizing her, as if tasting the air around her. Then they lunged. Nella grabbed my arm, hauling me toward the front door. My old bones screamed in protest, but adrenaline and terror pushed me forward. My cane clattered to the floor behind me as she pulled me through the doorway, out into the freezing night. The world outside was pitch black, the wind sliced across my cheeks, my breath clouded the air. She yanked me down the porch steps. "Mama, we don't have time. They know you opened the box. They know what you are now." "What I am." I stumbled, my foot catching on the uneven ground, nearly falling face first. Nella caught me before I hit the dirt, her grip tight, frantic. We ran, or rather, she dragged me while I tried not to collapse. My legs were trembling so badly I could barely feel them. Every step felt like it could be my last. Behind us, something slammed into the side of the house. The boards shook. A hollow, booming echo rolled across the yard. Then came another sound, like claws scraping wood. Piercing, furious. Nella looked over her shoulder and flinched. "They're faster than before," she whispered. "Faster than when they came for me." The cold dug into my bones as the truth tightened around my throat. Nella had been fighting this alone for years, running from it, hiding from it, carrying it, and I had never seen it, never understood it, never asked the right questions. My eyes burned. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. She didn't respond. She only pulled harder. We reached the edge of the yard, where the woods loomed like a wall of black teeth. Tall pines swayed in the wind, their branches groaning. The forest floor was littered with dead leaves that crackled beneath our feet. In the distance, a deep, rumbling growl rose from the house. Nella froze. "No, no, no, no," she murmured, shaking her head. "They're splitting. They're trying to trap us from both sides." She grabbed my hand again, her breath sharp. "I need you to trust me, Mama." I nodded, though fear had stolen the strength from my voice. We ran into the woods. Branches slapped my face, roots caught my shoes. My breath came in painful gasps. Every step felt like fire in my knees. But Nella moved with a strange, frantic speed, like something inside her was pulling her forward, guiding her through the darkness. Behind us, the forest erupted with movement. Shrill whistles echoed through the trees. Branches cracked. Leaves shuddered. Something moved from trunk to trunk, too fast to be human, too fluid to be animal. "They're following your scent," Nella said breathlessly. "They've waited years for this moment, for you to finally awaken." Awaken. That word wrapped around me like a cold hand. Nella pulled me to a stop near a clearing deep in the woods. The moon overhead peeked through the clouds, spilling pale light across the forest floor. At the center of the clearing stood an old stump, wide, dark, carved with the same symbol. The circle. And the 3 slashes. My chest tightened. "This is where they first came to me," Nella whispered. "When I was 13, I thought it was just nightmares. I thought I was losing my mind." Her voice broke. "And I didn't tell you, because I knew you'd look at me the way everyone else did." I swallowed hard, my heart twisting. "Nella, you are my child. I would never." She cut me off, lifting her hand. A vibration rippled through the clearing. The air thickened. The moonlight dimmed, as if the night itself held its breath. "They're close." I could feel it too, a cold wind brushing my spine, the ground trembling ever so slightly. A whisper, faint but growing, like dozens of voices murmuring beneath the soil. Nella turned to me, her eyes glowing faintly, something ancient simmering inside them. "Mama, listen to me. There's something you need to know, something Samuel tried to tell you, something they never wanted you to learn." I tried to steady my breathing. "Tell me." She opened her mouth, but a violent gust of wind cut her off. The shadows poured into the clearing like a storm. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Their shapes stretched and twisted, each one moving with an impossible smoothness. Their voices merged into one low, vibrating hum. "Lorraine." My name, whispered by all of them at once. Nella stepped in front of me again, her arms spread wide. "You can't have her." A tall figure emerged from the center of the swarm, taller than any human, its limbs long and bent. Its head tilted unnaturally, its form flickering like smoke struggling to stay solid. When it spoke, the entire forest seemed to vibrate. "We do not want to take her." The shadows parted, widening a path that led directly to me. "We want her to remember." My blood ran cold. Tears blurred my vision. The wind whipped around me in a frenzy. Nella screamed. "Don't listen to them, Mama. Don't let them in." The tall figure continued, its voice sharp, echoing through the clearing. "She already knows what she is." I shook my head. No, I didn't. I had no idea. I had lived my life quietly, married, raised a daughter, worked, buried my husband, aged like anyone else. But the shadows laughed, a horrible, twisting laugh that made my skin crawl. You were born knowing. Nella pulled at my arm. Mama, please, don't let them awaken it. You don't know what will happen if you do. The tall shadow stepped closer. Its eyes, two empty circles, burned into mine. You were the first, it whispered, and you will decide the last. My heart pounded. My breath came in short, panicked bursts. Nella sobbed. Mama, please, choose me, not them. Do not listen to them. The shadows stretched toward me, their voices rising. Remember. Nella grabbed my shoulders. Mama, don't look at them. But I did. I looked directly into the hollow eyes of the tall figure. And in that instant, something inside me cracked open. Something old. Something buried. Something that felt like it had been waiting decades to rise. The shadows bowed. Nella screamed my name. The forest pulsed with light. And then, everything went white. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer standing in the clearing. The world around me was white, endless, like walking inside a cloud made of light and sound. Nella's hand was still in mine, trembling. Her eyes were no longer glowing, but they were fixed on me, filled with a mix of fear, relief, and something I could not name. The shadows were gone. The tall figure, the swarm, the twisted version of Miriam, they had vanished. But their presence lingered in my mind, a weight pressing down on my chest. I realized then that they hadn't gone because I had fought them. They had gone because I had remembered. The locket in my hand, the one with the symbol carved beside my baby picture, burned with warmth. A pulse I could feel in my palm. A heartbeat. I understood then that it was not just a symbol. It was a mark of bloodline, yes, but also a key. Something only I could unlock because only I had lived through it all. Only I had survived their tests, their games, their manipulations. Nella whispered, her voice small. Mama, what do we do? I squeezed her hand. My old bones ached, but inside me, something long dormant had awakened. Something strong, something quiet, something I realized had never left me. A power to protect, to guide, to finally close the door on what had haunted us for generations. We did not run this time. I stepped forward. Nella followed, trusting me. The clearing seemed to react, folding in on itself. Shadows, soft now, like smoke dissipating in sunlight, began to retreat. They seemed to bow as I walked, respecting the choice I made. The mark, the bloodline, was mine, but I could decide what it would mean. I raised my voice, steady and calm despite the tremor in my chest. I had lived 82 years. I had known fear, loss, betrayal. I had buried my husband. I had lost my sister. I had watched my daughter endure horrors I could not stop. And now, in this endless white space, I spoke to the voices of the shadows, to the forces that had been shaping us for decades. Enough. The wind shifted, the light thickened, the pressure in my chest eased, and then I felt it, a presence behind me, cold and tense. I turned slowly. Nella stood there, alive, whole, human. She blinked, confusion and awe on her face. And behind her, the forest, the clearing, was no longer dark, no longer threatening. It had become still, peaceful, safe. We were free, not because I had fought blindly, not because I had been reckless, but because I had chosen. And then I understood something that made the tears fall freely. The monster everyone in the town whispered about, the one they feared, was not Nella. It was not me. It had been the fear itself. The silence. The hidden histories. The secrets we kept, thinking they protected us but only made us vulnerable. By facing it, by remembering, by choosing love over fear, I had broken the cycle. I looked at Nella, her face now soft, vulnerable, beautiful in the quiet moonlight. My daughter, My child, my blood, my responsibility, and my joy. She smiled faintly. Mama, she whispered. Yes, baby, I said, I'm here, and we're going home. The next day, I woke in my own kitchen. Sunlight poured through the windows. The swing in the backyard had been taken down long ago. The old wooden boards were solid. The letters and journals were packed away, locked in a safe I had built, sealed with my choice. Nella sat at the table, sipping coffee like nothing had happened, but I knew better. She looked at me with that same quiet strength that had carried us through the night, and I realized she was no longer afraid, and neither was I. Life returned, slowly. The town continued its gossip, its petty fears, its whispers of monsters, but we knew the truth. Sometimes the monsters were real. Sometimes they were born from love and memory, from what you hide, from what you fear. And sometimes the only way to survive is to face them together without flinching. I never forgot, I never will, but for the first time in decades I felt lighter, stronger, and ready to live the rest of my days not just in survival but in quiet victory. Because sometimes winning does not mean revenge. It means understanding, protecting, choosing what is right over what is easy, and finally letting the world see the love that was stronger than the fear. If you stayed with me through this story, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you want to experience more emotional and powerful stories like this, hit the subscribe button now and make sure to like this video. Turn on the notifications bell so you never miss a story that will touch your heart. And I'd love to know. Comment below and tell me which part of the country you're watching from. Let me know who is here with us tonight, feeling every moment of this journey. Because, just like me and Nella, you are part of this story too. The end.